Welcome back to the Global Business Report here on Arise News. Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, on Monday listed the gains of border closure since August include boosting domestic trade, job creation and enhancing Nigeria's economic policies. Though he said he was not an advocate of permanent border closure, Emefiele added that before the borders would eventually be reopened, affected countries must be actively engaged with a view to agreeing on certain terms and conditions. Answering questions from the State House correspondents in Abuja after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari before the president's departure to Saudi Arabia, Emefiele illustrated how some businesses, which he said had almost collapsed before the border closure, suddenly became productive barely a week after the closure.
Gentlemen, we are not saying that that the border should be closed in perpetuity, but that before the border can be reopened, there must be concrete engagements with countries that are involved in using their ports and their countries as landing ports for bringing in goods that are smuggled into Nigeria. That engagement must be held so that we agree on the basis under which what are the kind of products they can land in their country. Because if those products they land in their country is meant for their own local consumption, it's understandable. But the fact that those products are landed in their country and then transshipped or smuggled into Nigeria is something that I'm sure you all agree as Nigerians we should not allow to happen, because it undermines our economic policy, it undermines our own desire to ensure that industries are alive and jobs are created in Nigeria.
CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele there. Now, Nigeria is estimated to have up to 84 million hectares of arable land, with only 40% of this under cultivation. Given that the food component of agricultural produce is a basic necessity of life, as the population continues to grow, there will be a rise in demand for agricultural produce, especially rice. And partner and sector lead Agribusiness KPMG Nigeria, Mohammed Adama, joins me in the studio to tell us more. Mohammed, it's good to have you with us, and good morning.
Yeah, thank you.
So, before we start on the issue of rice, I would just like us to, look at agriculture in itself. In Nigeria, it contributed to an average of 24% to real GDP over the period of 2012 and 2018. So, is that a safety zone for Nigeria? You know, I'm looking at your report now. KPMG report on this.
Okay.
All right.
Safety zone, definitely no. For us to industrialize, we need to start with agriculture as the base. And if you see the contribution of Nigerian agriculture to GDP, yes, 24%, that is high, but we're only just scratching the surface in terms of the potential that we have. Across the various crops, that we can produce in Nigeria, our production in terms of yield per hectare is extremely low. Across almost all the crops, compared to Africa, compared to world averages. And so there is a lot we can do, and we don't even have a choice, because it is very easy to say a bit of agriculture. We actually don't have much compared to our population. And if you see, it is projected that Nigeria will have a population of about 400 million by 2050. And remember, land is fixed. Whatever it is that we have today is what we are probably going to have by 2050. So it's the same available land for 200 million people that you will have when you are 400 million. And so you have no choice but to increase your yield per hectare across all crops. And so there is a lot we can do to achieve that.
Very, very good. You've just painted a grim reality here, and I think to a large extent efforts need to be done in focusing on encouraging more production of arable land, as it were. So let's focus on rice now. Why is it a choice commodity for your industry view? The report, as it were.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, why rice? Rice, because rice has become one of the topmost staple foods in Nigeria. And the federal governments and a number of the state governments are focusing on agriculture generally and on rice in particular. So we thought it's necessary, to do an analysis of the industry, to look at the challenges and the various opportunities that are bound across the various value chains, and then give a view of what we think is the outlook, for the sector.
Yeah. Very good. Now, still on rice, and I'm going to go back to your concept about the arable land issue. Now, rice is cultivated on all of Nigeria's agro-ecological zones. Shouldn't this prospect sustain local production with this prospect? So technically, it means that from one end of Nigeria to another, you could grow rice.
Yes.
So what's the problem?
The problem is, one, you still need irrigation. Even though there are certain parts of the country today that rice is grown seasonally, during the rainy season. And once the rainy season stops, then, you are off. The farmers are off. That's one. So you need an improved irrigation system, and you need the right seedlings. Today, in Nigeria, our yield per hectare for rice is only 1.8 metric tons per hectare. That's lower when you compare it to the African average. The average for Africa is about 2.2 metric tons per hectare. If you compare to Egypt, Egypt has the highest yield per hectare in Africa. In Egypt, it is 8.2 metric tons per hectare. We are doing only 1.8.
That's grossly inadequate, if you ask me.
Grossly inadequate, yes. And the difference is precision crop management techniques adopted by the Egyptians. Better seedlings, superior seedlings. Here, some of the farmers are planting what I refer to as grains, not seeds. And there's a world of difference between the two. They plant saved seeds, like seeds from their own production, and replant. And when you do that, the next generation, the subsequent generations will be of poorer quality, and the yield will be very, very low. So, and then the irrigation systems are better, more advanced, and they leverage on technology. So those are the fundamental difference, better farming practices in Egypt compared to Nigeria. And that's why we are doing only 1.8 metric tons per hectare. They are able to do as much as 8.2 metric tons. Though in West Africa, Nigeria is still the biggest producer. But if you look at the statistics that I've just mentioned, we're just scratching the surface.
Scratching the surface, indeed. I was going to ask you how Nigeria is faring with their foreign counterparts, but you've just given me the lowdown, as it were. So let's talk about the value chain here, from production, processing, marketing, and consumption. How would you describe, the rice production process in Nigeria? And, you just painted a grim reality regarding how we're faring with foreign counterparts. But domestically, how would you rate that?
We are moving in the right direction. But if you see in the sector, we are faced with a lot of practical challenges. Infrastructure, to start with, the transportation systems, the poor irrigation systems, suboptimal milling processes. Because the milling process for rice requires that you use rice paddy that are of similar shape and quality. What we have in Nigeria at the moment, because we have a lot of inconsistency in terms of rice seedling, you have a number of the outgrowers and the medium to small scale farmers using different seedlings. And so when they get to the independent millers, you then find out that, it creates problems for them. The milling process is suboptimal. So you have a lot of waste because of that, because the seedling, are of different species. You have the long grain, the medium, and for you to have an optimal milling process, if you're milling the long grain, make sure all you have is long grains. But you have a situation where they buy from different outgrowers. You have medium, you have long grains, and so the outcome is not efficient. You have a lot of waste in the process.
a lot of waste in the process, and definitely, this is also sending some signals to some quarters regarding this. So what's the message to foreign investors? Yes, there are infrastructural challenges, as you've rightly said, and there are also a silver lining to all of this. So what do you make of that prospect?
Definitely, because if you look at the outlook for rice in Nigeria, there is a lot of opportunities across the value chain, for investors. Currently, our consumption per capita is 35 kg in Nigeria. The average for Africa is about 60 kg. So in terms of rice consumption per capita, Nigeria is actually below the African average. In a number of the rice-producing and consuming countries of the world, like Indonesia, Thailand, Bangladesh, China, India, the consumption per capita in some of those countries is as high as 200 kg per capita.
That is a lot.
If you come to pricing, the price per kg is also relatively high in Nigeria. Actually, in dollar terms, when we do the analysis, we try to compare the price, across various producing and consuming nations. And the price for Nigeria is about $1 per kg. It's about $1 per kg. Wow. In some other countries, it's 0.6, 0.7. That's the range. So given that as it may, and given our rising population, increasing urbanization, which will affect people's tastes, because as people move from the rural areas, the tendency to move from consuming cassava flour
do have taste. The
tendency to move, for a change in taste from cassava flour to maize and its derivatives to rice will go up. And our population will continue to grow. So it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge area of opportunity, for any investor, whether production, processing, marketing, across board, there are tremendous opportunities.
All right, opportunities despite challenges. All right, Mohammed Adama, it's been a pleasure having you, partner and sector lead, Agribusiness, KPMG Nigeria. I'd like to thank you for your thoughts on those issues. Good to have you. You've just educated me as well on some other issues, as it were.
Thank you very much for having me.